Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're setting the stage for a seriously fascinating journey into the inner workings of our renewable energy grid. We're going to look closely at a massive engineering puzzle that experts all over the world are practically sprinting to solve, and the incredibly innovative, out-of-the-box ways they're actually pulling it off. Right off the bat, we run into the most fundamental question of the whole renewable transition. What actually happens to a solar-powered world when the sun goes down? You know, solar energy is incredibly powerful, and it's getting cheaper by the minute, but it's got one glaring, completely unavoidable flaw. It's entirely dependent on daylight. So how on earth do we keep the lights on when our main energy source just vanishes into the dark? The reality we're facing right now is this stark, crazy mismatch. We've got abundant daytime energy production, like sometimes literally more than we even know what to do with. But then we hit a severe evening crisis. Think about it. The exact moment we actually need to flip on our lights, run the dishwasher, and charge our phones is the exact moment solar production just completely drops off, and that creates immense stress on our electrical grid. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to look at 4 key areas today. 1. The duck curve problem. 2. Home batteries and virtual plants. 3. Concentrated solar power. And 4. Nighttime anti-solar cells. All right, starting with section 1, the duck curve problem. So the duck curve. This is a term that was first coined by the California Independent System Operator back in the early 2010s. And let me tell you, grid operators absolutely dread this thing. As more and more solar projects come online globally, from Australia to Europe to the US, this curve is just getting more pronounced. It maps out a 24-hour snapshot of net electricity load after you account for solar generation. And the resulting graph literally looks like the profile of a duck. Here's why it's such a massive headache. During the middle of the day, you get this deep dip in net demand. That's the duck's belly. Solar power is at its absolute peak, and demand is so low that operators sometimes actually have to curtail or basically waste solar generation just to stop the grid from becoming unstable due to over-generation. But then, sunset hits. That's the duck's neck. Solar output falls off a cliff exactly when everyone gets home from work and turns everything on. It creates this steep, almost vertical upward ramp in demand. To prevent blackouts, grid operators are forced to rapidly fire out these expensive fast-start fossil fuel peaker plants. Honestly, our grid simply wasn't designed for this kind of wild variability. Moving right along to section 2, home batteries and virtual plants. So let's walk through the daily life cycle of a home battery setup and see how it beautifully bridges the gap of that duck curve we just talked about. During the day, your rooftop solar panels are absorbing sunlight. But instead of dumping all that excess power back onto an already stressed grid during that midday belly, the energy charges up a battery sitting right in your garage. Then, once the sun goes down, rather than adding to that steep evening surge, your house just draws power directly from its own battery. And the best part? Any leftover energy can be intelligently routed back to the wider grid exactly when the utility actually needs it most. But here is where it becomes a total game changer. Imagine linking thousands and thousands of these individual home batteries together. That is what we call a virtual power plant, or a VPP. It's essentially a cloud-connected network of home energy storage units. Much like how a computing cloud networks data, a VPP accumulates stored energy from neighborhood rooftops all over the city and distributes the excess power via the cloud to wherever the utility happens to need it. It literally turns everyday citizens into active, decentralized grid supporters, smoothing out that crazy curve without having to build a single new fossil fuel plant. How cool is that? Let's scale things up even more in section 3, concentrated solar power, or CSP. Now, this tech actually has a wild history. The core concept is ancient. Legend has it that way back in 212 BC, Archimedes used a burning glass made of mirrors to concentrate sunlight and literally ignite invading Roman ships. Fast forward to 1913, and you've got Frank Schumann building a parabolic solar thermal engine for irrigation over in Egypt. In the 1980s, the first commercial-scale plants, like the SEGS facilities in California, started popping up. And today, we have these massive, sprawling complexes like the Ivanpah facility, using hundreds of thousands of mirrors spread all across the desert. To put this into perspective, the sheer scale of the thermal energy we're dealing with here is just staggering. In modern central power tower designs, you have thousands of mirrors constantly tracking the sun, focusing all that intense light onto one single receiver. The working fluid inside that receiver can be heated to over 1,000 degrees Celsius. That's more than 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. So here's the real genius of it, and how it completely bypasses the whole battery problem. By using those mirrors to concentrate light, we heat up a fluid. Very often, it's molten salt. Because it's stored as heat in these heavily insulated tanks, it doesn't just leak away quickly like you might think. Later on, long after the sun has actually set, that extremely hot molten salt is run through a steam generator to spin a standard electricity-producing turbine. We're storing heat rather than light or chemical battery power, and that makes concentrated solar power a fully dispatchable energy source, ready to go day or night. And finally, Section 4, Nighttime Anti-Solar Cells. Okay, this concept is literally mind-bending. Think about a normal solar cell. It's relatively cool compared to the blazing hot sun, right? So it naturally absorbs photons of light to generate a current. But flip that scenario around. Outer space is incredibly freezing cold. So researchers at UC Davis had proposed a thermoradiative cell, essentially an anti-solar cell. Because the panel sitting here on Earth is relatively warm compared to the freezing void of deep space, if you point it directly at the night sky, it will actually radiate heat outwards as infrared light. Professor Jeremy Munday from UC Davis hits the nail on the head here. He explains, a regular solar cell generates power by absorbing sunlight. In these new devices, light is instead emitted and the current and voltage go in the opposite direction, but you still generate power. It's absolutely fascinating. You're using different materials, sure, but the fundamental physics are completely identical. They're just running in reverse. Now granted, this is still in the prototype phase, but under ideal conditions at night, these concept cells could generate about 50 watts of power per square meter. What does that mean? Well, it's roughly a quarter of what a conventional solar panel generates during the absolute peak of the day. But the incredible, massive advantage here is that if you shield it from direct sunlight, a thermal radiative cell could potentially operate and generate power around the clock. It directly addresses our entire day-night balancing act. Which leaves us with this incredible thought to wrap up our explainer today. From stringing together thousands of neighborhood batteries in the cloud to literally melting salt with millions of mirrors out in the desert, we've looked at some pretty amazing solutions. But if these thermoradiative cells can scale up, is humanity's ultimate energy battery actually the cold, freezing void of deep space itself? It's a spectacular question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore the incredible ways we're powering the night.